that our controller, right, notice that where's this 12 coming from? Right? How would I even know that I have this 12? Right? So typically what would happen is that the profile controller should not even have to know the ID of who's I'm using here. Right? Typically all this information would have to be kept on the server side. Right? So this function would actually be something like, instead of find user by ID, it would be something like find current user. And I don't know whose ID that is. Right? So it would go out to the server. The server would be responsible to know who's the currently logged in user. Ah, it's this person, right? So let's play around with that a little bit. So for instance, what we'd like to be able to do is that the service would need to provide a login function, right? That would take as argument username and password, right? It would pass them over, right? It would say something like function login, and you would pass in would pass as arguments username and password. So username and password, and you would post that information over to the server. Right, you pass in username and password. So the object would be passed in would be username, and password. Right, so you pass an object that contains those two fields, right, and you would post it in there, and the server would be responsible to find the user whose username is this, and so on and so forth. So on the server side. You would need to listen for an incoming post with login. Right, so where's our post? Here's an example post. Right, so this would be API login. Right, is that what we called it here? The URL. Actually, the URL would be plus. Would be this, right? Would be something like let's put login, and this would be login. So this would be login over here. Okay, so it would be mapped to login over here. Yes, and this would be login, right? And here, what you would get is a credentials. You would want to get credentials for that user that would be username and password. So this user would only really have the username and password, right? No first name, no last name, right? And you would have to find the user whose username and password are matched. Okay, so to do that, you would need to, in the repository, notice that there is no find by anything other than find all, find by ID, right? There is no find by anything other than the primary keys, right? So you need to implement. I have a cheat sheet over here. You would have to implement in your user repository. You would have to implement your own find user by whatever. Okay, so here I have it here. There it is. There you would implement a where is it? There we would implement a find by credentials in your repository. In your repository, where's my repository? Here it is. Notice that currently it's just empty, right? Because we're using all the boilerplate stuff. Yes, but this one is a little bit off the side, right? We need to use some other criteria by username and password. So we can create here our own that says find me find by credentials, right? By username and password, and what I'm going to pass you as arguments username and password, and you're gonna use that as parameters. You're going to use that as parameters to generate a select statement. Right, that's going to query the database with those username and password. Okay, So here's a query. It's going to generate this select statement that looks like a select statement, but it's not quite a select statement, right? This is, instead of being SQL, it's JPQL, all right? Which is it's an object-oriented version of SQL, right? So wait a minute, insert missing quote. Wait, what? What am I missing? Oh, this is supposed to be all in the same line. All right, so it's going to generate the select statement. It's going to return all the users whose first username and password match. And what are you complaining over here? Syntax error on token. Am I missing something here? Oh, I'm sorry. You have an extra curly bracket. All right, so now that I have that, I can go back to my user service, right, and use my login to use the find user by credentials and pass as argument user.get username and pass in user.get password, right? And that's going to return. This is going to return. Let's see. This returns multiple users, and so we can return all the users that match, or you could just return the first one. Right, return the first element in there, right? Here, just to make it so that it compiles, let's return all of them. But you know there's only one that matches that username and password, right? What are you complaining about? Oh, I'm going to cast it. There we go. We cast it. All right, so we can now test it. We can restart. And test with the login. We can pass in the username and password and retrieve that one user. Although I'm out of time. Okay, I'll add a couple more things here, and I'll post it and make it available on the repo. All right, I wanted to cover HTTP session. I'll add an example so that you can use that in your assignment. All right. Thank you.